Hello, in today's video we have the new motor just arrived for the new Mark IV platform. We're going to go through an unboxing. Two reasons why I'm videoing this. A, I've never done an unboxing before, and B, in the second kit I got, there was a bag missing. So if there is anything missing today, then I can just send along this video and say, here you go, you're seeing me open it for the first time. Tell me where the missing pieces are hiding. Now, video is going to be a bit wobbly as I do all this because the camera is balanced on a selfie stick that's balanced on an empty cardboard box, which is on a table that is at best rickety. It's a miracle it doesn't just collapse. I'm pretty sure it has once or twice. Alrighty, let's open this up. I'll try and make sure that I'm not blocking everything. Alright, so that's the same instruction book that I got with the last one. This is better instructions than I got with the first kit. It's actually got technical diagrams. The first kit I got was the best kit, but the instructions were the most useless. So at least in this one, you know, you've got good colour pictures, step by step instructions and general, you know, maintenance and tips and tricks. Now, in the instructions, it does say that it comes with a bevel. What is it? The small sprocket gear removal tool that it says is included with this kit. It wasn't included in the last one. I don't know if it should have been, but it wasn't. What I did get in the last kit and as well with this one is spare gasket kit. It's already been my saving grace once. I've had to order gaskets off of eBay for the first kit. When the second one came, all the gaskets are pre-built onto the motor like they normally are, but having the spares. Hello, I'm blogging.
Blogging?
Yeah. Steering wheel. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, we're ready to continue unboxing. So, sprocket. Alright, now we're going to do this individually, I think. You can kind of see, but let me just show you anyway. All of these boxes are packed exactly the same. 3 boxes that'll have the exhaust and bits and pieces in it, obviously motor and, you know, accessories and throttly bits and what have you not. So if I can balance you back up there, stay. What I think we'll do, there we go, we've got a nice frame there. I will just center us a little bit more because you need to see less of me and more box. Break everything I touch, I swear. Alrighty, in this box of tricks, we have kill switch, CDI, rather good quality spark plug removal tool, fuel petcock, tank lid. This little bag is what was missing out of the second kit, so far so good. We have chrome exhaust, broken glass table. Now, this is what I was excited to see. These lever clutch gears. They are much better than the push button ones. In my experience, my first motor kit had a push button clutch lever on it. The button broke after a couple of rides, and I actually had a bit of elastic, the same piece now that was holding my choke lever down in the last video, or the video before last. I lose count, honestly. I record them out of order and upload them in whatever order I want. But this style has not broken. It's been strong. If anything, I don't know if you can see on the video there, but this is where it connects. That's gotten a bit manky over time, just as you know, you grind it and you let it go. And if you're not too careful, disengaging the lever before you pull it down, I've just done it there, you heard that. It'll scrape up against there, and over time, it's a fairly soft metal I've found. It's bound to wear out, but you can probably tack something in there, fix it up. Strong as an ox as far as I'm concerned, and I tend to look for these more than the push button ones. Alright, so we have throttle lever and associated plug, left hand grip. It's kind of a plug in reverse, you stick it on. These are kind of feel a bit cheap and nasty plastic, but you can always upgrade online. You do get the bare essentials in these kits. Now, I don't mind them anyway because I wear gloves when I'm riding, so having you know, a bit of hard plastic on there is not such a big deal. I did have rubber grips with my first kit, which again, spoiled with my first kit. It was the cheapest one and generally has been the best quality with the exception of the clutch lever braking. But I've got no issues on using those ones. So tensioner, this is one of the older ones with the 2 bolts. Not my favourite. Look, I'm sure these are fine, but I just feel like there'll be more lateral movement like this, only having the 2 bolts rather than having the 4. I might be inclined to steal the other one off the mountain bike for Mark IV if I give this the kick test and it moves even the tiniest bit. I haven't actually used one like this before. The second kit came with this style. I ended up just harvesting these bolts for other uses because I'm pretty dead set against using ones that only have the 2 bolts. Just for security, 4 bolts versus 2, learn to count. But we'll see how we go. Alrighty, NT carburetor, lovely. Looks to be alright. I've had a little bit of trouble with these carbies in the past, but honestly, not as much as you'd expect, and they are really, really easy to work on. They're easy to pull apart, easy to clean. Every time I've pulled one apart, it hasn't been filthy, but it's just a good idea to get that habit into, you know, just pulling it apart. So there's our chain guard, which my first one, it is pretty bent out of shape now, being on 2 different types of frames. I will just use this one and hack it up if I need to, but I'd rather just use a fresh one on this Mark IV build. Hang on, cat. Kitty cat wants to be let out and I've locked her in. Come on, puss. We're back. So I will be using that chain guard on the Mark IV build because I do want it to look neater. It's a nicer bike, it's higher quality, it's newer. The old one I estimate being maybe 10 or 15 years old when I got it. Look, I haven't really had an issue with that second-hand bike. In fact, it stood up to the punishment I've given it particularly well. Obviously the motor is currently out of service because I broken easy out in it, which that video is being uploaded as I'm recording this, magic of YouTube. It will happen immediately. So I do have two little loose nuts in there. And maybe they'll fit here. I'll start doing things properly. They've come out of something or other, so I'll just slip them in here. And it doesn't really matter if you end up with leftovers after a few kits, because as I'm learning, you can't have too many spare parts. Oh, actually, while we are on that topic, with the first build on this throttle cable, I didn't have the drill bits I needed to drill into the handlebars. So what I did was I removed the little, I'm not going to take it apart, but I'll try and show you. The little stud that's in there, yeah, you can see it there. Rather than drill into the handlebars with a drill bit I didn't have anyway, I just removed it. It just unscrews. And I just tighten these screws down extra hard. They're pretty soft quality plastic. You can't really over tighten them though. You can tighten them to the point where it doesn't move. And do you know what? I didn't damage my mounting at all. And in fact, I prefer to do that. I don't really like drilling into the frame unless I absolutely have to. It's not because I'm worried about you know, weakening the frame, more about I don't want to get stuck with this kill switch in one particular position. If I drill into it and I don't like it, it's sitting too high or sitting too low, there's no way for you to adjust it after that. But by removing that little stud in there and then getting it just where you like it, you tighten these right down, it's not going to move. And if it is slipping about, get a bit of piece of old rubber. I'm using an old inner tube for all of mine. Stick it around in there to give it a bit more grip. And that'll hold it on nicely. But as I say, I haven't done the rubber trick yet. I haven't had to. Alrighty, so I'm not packing all this stuff away properly because obviously I'm about to start building this stuff fairly soon after unpacking it. So it can just sit loosely in the box there. So nothing is missing from that as far as I can tell, which is the box that, as I said, was missing a piece first time around. Okie dokie. Small miracle that the camera hasn't fallen over, although I'm giving it my best shot. Fuel line. Now, that'll do in the short term, but every video I've watched on how to build these motorbikes, everyone has said the same thing. This cheap, nasty plastic tube will harden and crack and you'll start seeping fuel. I've noticed it first around the cable ties that I've used to hold on to, you know, the fuel line to the carby. I've gone through a fair bit of hose constantly replacing that part because it does crack. So when I went to the hardware store yesterday, I went and bought some ring clamps. Here's a close-up, there we go, one of these things. Now it's massively too large at the moment, but that is a 6 to 11 mil ring clamp, and I will be able to tighten that down around the carb, which I will do a little later on when I'm doing the build video. I haven't heard of anyone actually using the ring clamps on these yet. Everyone's either just jammed them on without so much as a cable tie or used the cable ties. The cable ties have worked well, but even this soft rubber, the cable tie has eaten into it, so I will not use this ring clamp on that cheap rubber. I'll use the good rubber that I bought yesterday. because why would I buy 5 meters of tubing if I'm not going to use it? And as I said, I want this build to be the good one. So there's your standard run-of-the-mill cute little tiny petrol tank, which if you've been watching my videos, you'll know I've upgraded to the 4-litre one. Haven't run out of fuel yet, and if I do, I'm doing something wrong. So that's it for that box. Fuel tank, fuel line. Go down there. Now the very last box is the heavy part, and we all know what that means. Empty box. Alrighty. I left this box to last. This is where the headache starts. There's our rag joint. Again, there's a lot of hate for these rag joints. I haven't had a problem. Yes, it takes a lot of time, but if you do your job properly, it will last. I have not had one of these slip or come out of true. Just take the time. What I did the first time I ever built one, and the 2 other times I've had to do a rag joint since on the, you know, I'm up to Mark 4 now, I'm yet to build that, but Mark 3, that's 3 times I've had to do a rag joint. You label your bolts, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all the way around, and you tighten them from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 around that pattern. You tighten them down evenly. You count the amount of turns you're doing. I do maybe 5 turns to begin with. Even if they're still so loose and I can hand tighten them, I'll still get in there and I will count the turns. As it's coming down to tighten, 1 full turn, half a full turn. Just so long as it's a consistent pressure the whole way around, it will stay true. If it's wobbling around like that, yeah, okay, you've got to go round and through it and find out which ones come loose. Because as you tighten these nasty little rubber rag joints, they will compress, and even though you think one side might be tight, as you go around, by the time you get back to this first one, it will be almost finger loose again. So you've just got to spend the time on it, make sure everything's tight. Generally, if you've done your job properly, it won't come loose. That doesn't mean don't check it, especially after your first few rides. You've really got to get in there and check it properly. But so far, I haven't had anything bad happen with a rag joint. No bent spokes, not so much as a loose spoke. Check your work. I'm learning this. I'm on my 3rd kit now, and I've been recording pretty much every mistake that I've made. What can I say? Nothing, because I've gone blank. You'll learn through doing, is what I'm saying. Alright, so this is a nasty, disgusting, yucky, cheap, I'm gonna throw this away, fuel filter. I don't even need to see that again. I would rather pull the good filter I've got off the Mark 3 bike, which is the one that came in the first kit. Really, really good quality filter. I would rather use that now used old filter that's seen maybe a couple of 100 kilometers. Then that's never going anywhere near my bike. That's now a cat toy. That's on the floor. Nobody cares about it. If I do need another one, I'll just buy a good quality one. Don't skimp on quality. I say that using a rag joint and the nasty hardware that the bike comes with. Alright, so this here is our clutch cable. This one here with this little bit is our accelerator cable. Now that's the part that goes into the throttle assembly. So you've got 3 points where you can tighten the cable on this throttle, which I'll explain now because it is a handy piece of information to know. It is generally depending on, obviously the size of your bike, how far away from the handlebars that your throttle cable is actually going to. You do tend to get a fair amount of slack in that line. And unlike the throttle cable where you can just pull it and tighten it, this end here with that little knob goes into the carby, and that's obviously your other end of your throttle cable. There's not a great deal of play in that. Where's our little NT carby? You do have a small amount of play in this little screw on top. So you can tighten it a little bit from that end. If you do need to raise your idle and the little idle screw here is not doing the trick, you can sort of force it open by winding that open. But that's only going to work if you've got enough tension in the cable to begin with, which is where this comes in. So I'm not going to pull the other part out because I'll do that in the build anyway. But you can wind that piece all the way into the throttle assembly, and then if it's still too much slack in the cord there, you can unwind it a fair bit and then tension it up to the throttle assembly using that little nut there. The other way is down at the bottom here. This is the main one I use. Once the top part is set, I like to leave it because I don't like this cable moving around the front of the bike if it comes loose. So I like to get that one nice and tight and just use my tension there. Now, it doesn't have to be on there super far. It just has to be on there tight enough, maybe 3 or 4 lines, I guess. There's a technical term for that, but I'm blank. Rule of thumb is your throttle cable. Let me give you a close-up there. If you can see exposed cable, it's too loose. So at the very least, you need the end of that silver piece in there. And as you pull the throttle, it might seat, and then that will move up. Now the throttle only uses about so much cable anyway. And that's all the way back now. I haven't had it yet where this has been too long. And to be honest, I would not want to be the one to try and shorten one of these anyway. That's not something I think I'd ever have to do. I would rather revisit my build and see what else I've done wrong, because everything in this kit, whilst being universal, there is some things you have to change about. The cables are going to be the last of your problems. While we are on the topic of cables, there's one problem you may have with the clutch cable that you won't have with the accelerator, because the accelerator cable is sealed on both ends. Now this one has had a little bead of solder put on the end of it. Yeah, it's not going to be able to see because my camera's just not that good. But you must be very, very careful not to let these fray. Because once they start unwinding, we'll kiss your cable goodbye. It's the beginning of the end. Every time you have to thread it through, it's going to start unwinding. And if it starts unwinding and going into this sheath, it will bind up. That's part of the problem I was having with the brake cables on the Mark III build, is as I was threading new cables in, my brakes still worked, but because there was a fraying, unwinding cable in there, it really limited the movement because it was getting bound up inside of that sheath. So my personal recommendation is, if you get a cable, doesn't matter how old or how new it is, it starts fraying, throw it away, order a new one. The thing about these kits, even though they are going up in price thanks to COVID-19, parts are everywhere. You can almost build your own kit using the parts that you can get separately. Of course, that's going to be redonkulously more expensive than just buying the kit. Alrighty, here is our engine. These have the 32mm mounting plate, which is disappointing. The first kit I had, again, had the 8mm studs and it was 40mm wide. They take absolutely zero care. I'm going to grab this camera up for a second. Alrighty, now this needs a close-up. You can get silver or black versions of this motor, and I prefer the black. I think it blends in a little bit easier. All they do is spray it, and they take absolutely zero care what they're spraying over. These are the contacts here for the magneto. Obviously that delivers the spark, and I'm trying to show you there, very bad angle, there we go. They've just sprayed over the top of those electrical contacts. Now, dirty contacts will give you problems. So I get a bit of steel wool and I just scrub them till they're shiny. You do not want to have paint on your electrical contacts. It is just nasty. So there's our motor. I do intend to pull this one apart before it goes anywhere near the bike. Being my third motor, there's a few things now that I know what to look for. Replace this gasket immediately. This is the exhaust port, if you don't know. All they've done is very clearly shoved a bit of stuff in there and they've sprayed over the top of the gasket. Spray paint on gaskets is bad. If you've been having trouble with leaky gaskets and you're just using that stock nasty crappy one, that's your own silly fault. Now, on a recent video I was watching on YouTube, there was a bit of a discussion about the best way to stop this leaking, and I believe it was a Toyota four-wheel drive oxygen sensor gasket that fits almost perfectly to this hole. That's fantastic. It's a metal gasket, it will seal perfectly. You may just have to widen the holes for the bolts there because they look to be just a mil too narrow. I'm not going to do that, but that was a really brilliant piece of advice that came up on YouTube, and I just thought I'd share that there. So props to you. That was a fantastic piece of advice. So the motor goes to the side for now because I will do that later. Here is our cheap and nasty plug. Now, I've been recommended to throw these in the bin and grab an NGK spark plug to use. Haven't got one yet, but I'm definitely going to do that. These are fine for spares. They'll get you going, you know, in the first place. You may even make it through the break-in period. I did. I haven't yet had a problem with the spark plug. Again, that's using the one that came with the first kit. I feel like that was just better quality kit to begin with. But I'm gonna tape up that little box and throw that in with my toolkit and various little spare parts that I'm gathering for when I go out on rides. Because even if it's a cheap and nasty spark plug, if it gets you going, it's good. But yeah, I haven't actually had a burnt out spark plug yet. Alright, and there is our 415 chain. Boop, boop. So I never actually got around to replacing the chain on the Mark III. This was only yesterday that I snapped the easy out into the bolt I was trying to extract. The Mark III platform isn't dead in the water yet. I do have plans for that, so keep an eye out for that one. It won't be for a while because I want to get this Mark IV platform are up and running first. So just thinking, can you see the pain? Now I was just saying replace that exhaust gasket. That's another reason to really appreciate the fact that they've thrown in a gasket kit just as part of the kit. I don't mind paying, you know, an extra $50, $60, $70 for a kit if they're going to throw in bits and pieces like that that are going to help you out. These are very much so expendable parts. They will wear out, you will have to replace them. Having them on hand and not having to wait a couple of weeks for it to come through the mail is a good thing. Alright, so I nearly made a big mistake and put this at the bottom of the box. The last thing I need is to be putting the weight of the motor on top of those gaskets. Here I am saying, fantastic, good job. It's a moot point if I'm going to destroy it as soon as I pack the box up. So, chain, rag joint, motor can stay out because I'm working on that. Steering wheel, cablers. I need a new cabler. A cabler. What is a cabler? Oh man. Okie dokie. So. Look at this. Doing something I said I was going to before I forget. Ta-da! Look, I will say I'm disappointed to see that that spark plug box was falling apart, which would just be rattling around in transit, but come on. A thing like a spark plug that makes the whole shebang-a-bang work, it should come better protected. I should do a video of all the bits I've cut. And really get to see what a nutcase I am. My family knows this. I've even taught the littlest to say, "You're a nutcase. You're a nutcase." Alright, that's it from me for now.